Welcome everyone. Welcome to Forced Migration in the Arts. Forced Migration in the Arts is an international network that brings together people with lived experience of forced migration, refugee and non-refugee artists, academics, activists, and art spaces. The network encourages mutual support and collaboration and hosts monthly discussion panels around forced migration in the arts. For tonight's conversation, we've got two absolutely wonderful poets. We've got Loraine Mponela, who is a migrant rights campaigner, community organizer, and the author of Now I Sing 50 Poems to Celebrate 50 Years. And she's also the author of I Was Not Born a Sad Poet. And our second speaker is going to be Dadirai Tsopo, who is a community development worker, arts practitioner, poet, and curator who works in a grassroots hyperlocal community setting. Dadirai is also founder of a migrant women's group, and her practice is based on asset-based community development model that encompasses resident-led co-production. In all her roles, Dadirai advocates for, develops, showcases, and promotes grassroots cultural participation, especially among and within migrant communities. For this conversation, for tonight, what we are doing is we are looking at what asylum-seeking and refugee artists make of the far right. And by far right, we also need to stress that we are talking about racist, xenophobic, and Islamophobic ideologies and the violence that that comes with it. For tonight, we are looking at how refugee artists, the sense that they make of this violence, and also what the arts can do about it all. Dadirai will be joining us at 6:15. So what we've decided, what we are going to do is that we are going to hear I don't know if I can call it a performance. We are going to hear Loraine take us on a journey, on her journey as a poet. And we are going to hear poetry from Loraine, interwoven with a narrative about that journey. So without more from me, I hand over to Loraine.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ambrose, and thanks everyone who is here. Thank you for coming. So the first poem I will share with you, it is a new poem. This poem is called Because We Are Humans. I have brown eyes, you don't. I love Nsima, Sadza, you don't. I'm a Christian, you are not. I wrap my waist or cover my head or make a dress from an African cloth, chitenje. You have a different taste. The entire world is like that, different. We are all individuals with different needs, tastes, and importance. Let us embrace everyone as they come as individuals, treated the same because we are humans and a part of the community. I am me, you are you. I don't need to be you, nor you to be me. We can laugh and joke, share and cry without me becoming you or you becoming me. That's the end of the first poem. And the second poem, I think we still have time for another poem. The second poem I'll read from Oh, thank you, CB Honey. I can see the I can see the hand. Thank you. Yeah, so the second poem I'll read from my book, Now I Sing, like Ambrose introduced. This poem is called Seeking Dreams in the Streets. So this poem I wrote based on experiences of people around me, of course, with their consent. Seeking dreams in the streets. A female friend tells me, that night when I reached the door and found the keys left inside the lock to block me out, I closed my eyes tightly to make sure I wasn't dreaming. The third eye reached for the hedge. I wasn't afraid of the cold, nor humans. A multitude of snails, with and without shells, licked me everywhere, asking me to open my mouth, sensing I hadn't eaten for days. When I come to your house, please do not serve snails on the kitchen table. Seeking dreams in the streets. Another female friend says to me, for 4 days, I hadn't had a bath under the bridge where I lodged. I became aware of my own smell. I now bathe twice a day. When I come to your house, please don't ask me why I love baths so much. I'm paranoid that the smell would return. Seeking dreams in the street. This smell friend says in excitement, the graveyard was the best of all. No one spat on me. But I realized I couldn't speak. I didn't know if I was alive or not. When I come to your house, please don't shut me off when I speak. Seeking dreams in the street. Another male friend says, I was very happy sleeping in an old car. It was safer than the open space, although I couldn't stretch my legs. When I come to your house, please don't ask me to drive your car. Seeking dreams in the streets. An elder friend tells me, the refugee organization I trusted handed me a sleeping bag and led me to my new home, the pavement. When I come to your house, don't let me sit or sleep on a hard floor. Thank you. Thank you.
I think we've got time for 2 more.
Okay. Dadirai isn't here yet, yeah?
No, not yet.
Okay. Let's this one I will read from my first book. I Was Not Born a Sad Poet. And this poem is called How to Walk With Me. So this poem was written in the form of what they call ABCdarian. So every line starts with the letter of the alphabet from A to Z. And here we go. How to walk with me. Accept me as I am. Be with me in my struggles. Converse with me. I'm human. Diligently and with dignity, engage with me. Every passing minute, we lose focus when we engage in hate. Greet me and light my spirit. Human I am, and so are you. Indifference is not an option. Just like a beating heart, think not of stopping. Kill the state of knowing. Be curious instead. Let me hold your hand and walk with me. My journey finishes when all are free, nobody left behind, only holding each other's hands. Pity is not to be saved now. Let's walk. Questions shall be answered, revisited at the end. For now, let's walk. Soon we shall celebrate through all the barricades of systemic abuse. Until the end, this walk is all we have. Victory or life, our lives are on the line. Who really wants to live like this? Examined and inspected every day when reporting. You wouldn't know it unless you walk with me. So zero down with me and hold my hand. Let's walk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Loraine. Thank you. I think maybe we dive in, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So where do we begin?
I guess that's a good question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just introduce myself a little bit more. And then we can pick up the conversations as we go. So, like I was introduced, my name is Loraine. I am from Malawi originally, but I live in Coventry now. I was an asylum seeker between from 2015 to 2022, and I'm now a refugee. Before I claimed asylum, I lived in Leeds. My journey finishes when all are free. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sibihani. Yeah. Yeah, we have to fight on until everyone is free, definitely. Yeah. So before I claimed asylum, I was living in Leeds. When I claimed asylum, as part of the dispersal process that the Home Office does, I was moved to Birmingham initially, and then later on to Coventry, where I was sharing a house with other 5 asylum seekers in a 4-bed house. So in Coventry, I am part of Coventry Asylum and Refugee Action Group, CALAG, which is a community group. I joined CALAG in 2016, the time that I was moved to Coventry. It is a place where we come together to share solidarity, to look after each other, but also a place of belonging. As I was going through asylum seeker, there were so many challenges, and I'll just highlight a few. One of them, and the biggest one, was destitution, where when my asylum case was refused and I was left with no support. But there are also other challenges that people still face today that I also faced, like I was going for reporting. And when you have reporting, what sometimes people do not realize is the anxiety that comes with just thinking that you have a reporting where anything can happen, you can be detained and be deported and things like that. So for me, it was like every 2 weeks before I go for reporting, I would have really unsettled time, but also at the same time, as someone who was refused, I wasn't getting any support in terms of travel to get to reporting centers. And as other people say it, to say even the fittest people, when it comes to mental health in asylum system, no one survives. So I'm also someone who has been affected by mental health going through the process. But there's also genostigma, which is pervasive, I guess. And so most of us as asylum seekers and refugees, we tend to live, it's like asylum is associated with shame because of the way how people portray asylum. And so you live with the shame, and this portrayal is mostly by politicians and of course some media houses. I work for Migrant Voice. It is a charity, but I'm here as an individual. I write poetry, some of it that we have heard earlier. I also perform comedy sometimes. I am an activist, and I'm also a proud grandmother. So yes, cutting the long story short, that's a little bit about me. Thank you.
So just how long were you reporting for?
From the time I received the refusal from around 2017 to the time that the pandemic hit in 2020. And I still remember the last reporting that I went, it was maybe 17 March, and the lockdown came like maybe was it on 19th of March. So it was a time when everyone already was aware that there's a pandemic, but as asylum seekers, we were still expected to go and report. It was so terrifying because everyone was like, everyone is staying at home. People started staying at home before the announcement. But as an asylum seeker, because of the fear and because of the rules, which they say you have to go and report, I went there, and I was so, that day, I remember I was very angry when I went there, because when I arrived, we were told, we waited for a very long time, which was unusual, because usually, because they put people depending on hourly kind of thing, so it's manageable. You don't wait for a very long time, but that day waited for a long time, only to be told when I went to the counter, I said, why are we, stuck here for so long? He said, oh, because someone turned up, was very sick. I don't know why they came. They should have made them safe. A decision, was coughing, so we wanted to disinfect the place first before other people. So for me, it was like, why are we even left to be, to be exposed to such things at a time when the whole world did not know about what was coming with the COVID, and fears were already everywhere. But yeah, so initially I was reporting every month, once a month. But then the other day when I told them that next month I'm not coming because where I go to migrant center, they close for Christmas early, and you cannot collect your transport at migrant center like a week or 2 weeks before. No, you take the text from home office that they've sent you to say you are coming for reporting on Monday, for example. That's the one you show to say, I have this reporting, can you help me with transport? So because they would have closed for Christmas, the text my reporting, which was around 20-something, 21 or 22, migrant center would have closed already. I said, by the time your text will come, migrant center will have closed, so I can't go to collect money to come here. And the persons whom I explained that, he just said, okay, you can jump December, come to next month, January. So I skipped December, I went there January, and then that's how I started reporting once every 2 months. That's where I also learned that actually this reporting of whether it's once a month or once weekly or whichever, those, or once in 6 weeks, maybe it's just someone deciding, because for me, it was just that expressing that I cannot come next month because migrant center will have closed by that time, so I will have no transport to come here. And someone had the power to change the date. So which means it's something that can be changed. But also, during pandemic, I wasn't going to reporting. Someone was just calling me on the phone, excuse me, which means they can still monitor people via the phone, because all of the pandemic, that's what happened. So yeah. But it is maybe something that you can also touch upon later on, because even when the far-right riots were happening, people had fears about reporting, to say, how can I go? But they were told to say they still need to go. So people, against the fears they had for far-right violence that was happening, people were still going for reporting.
How would you describe the feeling?
Like I said, every 2 weeks before the reporting date, I will not settle. I will not be myself. Your body just gets into, it's like it becomes part of you. It becomes routine, as in the fear comes in, and then you have all this anxiety. And me, I'm like, why am I feeling this way? Then I'm like, oh, yeah, it's reporting time, isn't it? Like that, like that, like that. So it becomes part of you. Sometimes you can even confuse that maybe you are like that, when actually it's because there's this fear of reporting. I remember there was a time my doctor even prescribed medication to say, you need to be taking this in the morning, the day when you go there, so it can calm you down, something like that. So it's I can't even put a name to it, but I think it shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't be happening, because it's quite damaging. And like I'm saying, people who are destitute, I'm lucky because I'm aware of migrant center where I could go and get £5. Many people for transport, many people, they are not even aware that there is migrant center. Someone just turned up on our door not long ago. When was it? Last Wednesday. Yeah. Turned up on the door, like hungry, and you could see someone is thin who is not eating. And I'm like, have you been to migrant center? He says, where is migrant center? So that's how, as far as things can get. So I was lucky because I knew I had all these networks where I would go and collect money. But to some people, it's working. I remember there was a man who said, oh, I was taken, like, when you get in a bus without paying, and then people make a case out of that. But he was trying to go to reporting because he's not on any support, but he can't miss the report. It's like they caught me, and because Solihull is a bit complicated with Coventry. So at the moment there is a direct bus, but usually people would go through Birmingham. Either way, you are using a train or you are using the normal first buses. You go through maybe Birmingham International, then change to catch a bus to Solihull. So it's torture. Maybe that's how I can describe it. Especially that way I'm saying, during pandemic, I wasn't going. They were just calling me. Are you okay? I'm like, yes, I'm fine. Are you still at the same address? I'm like, yeah. And that's it. Because even when I used to go there, on the counter, it was less than a minute. When to see someone, it's less than a minute. Are you okay? Yes. Your next date is on 15th. You are out.
And how many years was this?
From 2017 to 2020, 17, 18, 19, 20, 4 years almost. Yeah, like I said, I started with every month, but then there was a time where I was going now once every 2 months. But some people go every week, some people every 2 weeks, some people different for different people. But like I'm saying, someone just decided for me to say, okay, you were going 1 month, you can come you can skip next month, come, because you're saying you don't have transport. And then it became the rule now. I was going every 2 months. So it means it's something that it's at the discretion of someone. People can change it, because it happened for me.
I don't know. Is there anyone who's got any questions among the people who are present, or anyone would like to say something before we continue?
I saw something flying in the chat. I don't know. Oh.
I think there was a comment from Nasrin. Nasrin, do you want to speak to your comment?
What can I say? It's heartbreaking to hear, Loraine. But I know people who has been here for 20 years and they don't have any, they don't have the refugee status.
Mm.
We have to do something about it. I work with Freedom from Torture and we work against this system. I don't know, it's so bad. It's torture, as you said, it's torture. Thank you.
That is true, actually, because I also know a lot of people who have been here 22 years, 23 years, I don't know how many years. And to just think about living in limbo, in destitution for 20 years, it's like you are tested to the limit. So if you are lucky, you reach there still with your, but mostly people, you will have lost your mental capacity by the time you get, and then you reach 20 years, it's not as easy. So this is why people are getting to 23 years, but they still don't have nothing. Why? Because they don't have a solicitor who can help them to put their things together, and so it's just, I wish it was automatic, but even 20 years is just, who would live suffering for 20 years? Who would just sit there and say, until you reach 20 years? Like, who would punish someone like that? To say 20 years, you'll suffer for 20 years. Who even decided that it has to be 20 years? We're not saying 20 days, 20 years of your life gone. Yeah, so I don't know, because we have a campaign status now, which we are trying to talk about how can undocumented people be given status. But I also do not know to say what exactly needs to be done so that people who have been here, even 5 years is a very long time, just living, hopping from place to place, to street, under the bridge, under this, under that. It's not it's not the right thing, but yeah, it's sad.
And then you got leave to remain.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Oh yeah. Oh God. It's non-stop, isn't it? So when you get refugee status, people assume that, oh, she's fine, so everyone drops, yeah, and you stay on your own. To me, it's like now it's a different battle. I'm not from here, so definitely I don't understand the system. I don't even know where to start from. Much as in Malawi, I was a lecturer. I was teaching at a college for diploma students. So you would think, oh, but that was in Malawi. It's not in the UK. Malawi and UK are at two different extremes, right? So I would still, require that support to say, okay, you can do this, or there's this program, or there's this a path to leadership because this is what you have been doing here, but there's nothing like that. So it has been really a struggle to also kind of like establish yourself in the world of work, because who will write a reference letter for you where you have not been working for many, many years? Who will even employ you, where you are saying, I'm just an asylum seeker, no experience which people count as valued, because when you are volunteering and doing all this stuff as an asylum seeker, people just want to see you as that. That's my, that's my thinking, that people get used to that, to just say you are a volunteer, But now I want to work. I want to be paid for the same thing that you have been asking me to do. That, to me, I see as an area that we need to improve, so that people who have the right to work, people need to be paid, instead of just expecting that because she has been a volunteer, or she has been doing this, she has already been doing that, it's part of what she does, and all of that. I think it's wrong, because at the end of the day, I also want to come home and eat and pay bills and stuff like that. Yeah. So when I got my status, I briefly worked for a charity called Hope Projects. They're based in Birmingham. It was a maternity cover, so that was 9 months. Like I said at the beginning, I now work for Migrant Voice, but I'm here as an individual. So I work as a community worker. But most of the things that I do, and I still do with my friends and the people around me, it's still outside of my work, because when I was asylum seeker, I was privileged to be the chairperson for Coventry Asylum and Refugee Action Group, CARAG. So during that time, I knew a lot of people, and I am part of a big community, and so we still support each other where we can. And so a lot of my work is still within the supporting each other outside of work. Did I answer your question, Ambrose?
Yes, yes. And maybe you could also say something about how you felt when you got leave to remain.
Initially, at first, when I was told, because I was at home and my solicitor rang me to say, oh, sit down, I've got news for you. So I said, oh, what again? So yeah, I was thinking it's something else, like, because I was used to refusal. So I thought, oh God, what again? She said, no, it's good news. So I sat down, and she told me to say, oh, you've got refugee status, 5 years. I screamed, yeah, in excitement, like I'm so happy. But in the same phone call, I started crying. Why now? Why all these years? Why? I was crying. And then, thankfully, before I got my, when I got my status, I talked with whether it was before or after, I talked with Natasha, who used to be the director at Women for Refugee Women. She had told me something about what happens to other people when they get status. She said, when you have been, what she had said then, she was like, I hope she's okay for me to quote her. She said, for some people, when you have been holding on, we've been holding yourself together during the asylum process, when you get status, that's when sometimes things break down when you get status. Sometimes when you have been struggling in asylum, by the time you get status, to some people, then they, you become better, your situation change. So that kept ringing in my head to say, oh my God, I hope I'm not gonna go, crazy, because each time I was just thinking about it, I was crying a lot. Each time I come to my room, I was crying a lot, because everything that was just reminding me about asylum, and how I had suffered for the 7 years. So I even left for a week, whether it was a week or 2. I went to Glasgow to kind of like, maybe I'll process it, because that's what I thought it would happen. I came back, it was the same. I ended up in therapy to kind of like help me to understand what was going on. So it was, much as it was good news, but it was also very painful to take it in and to process it. because of just thinking about what has changed in me from 7 years ago and now. What is it that has changed for now to now be recognized? Why was I put through all this that I was put through? So yeah, it was mixed feelings.
So the Home Office gave you 5 years.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Okay. Do I understand? You know, the thing is, the system is too complex, and because this is why sometimes whether it's Zilinka, she would say you need a caseworker for yourself now because yeah, you get status. What does it mean? The 5 years. What I know is that after 5 years, I can change to something else, to indefinite leave to remain for 1 year. After 1 year, then I can apply for British, which I also know that applying for British is not free from what people say, that you have to save money if you want to get to that road. So in terms of benefits, I had the wrong impressions or wrong assumptions, because when I was homeless as an asylum seeker, refused, and all of that, I was thinking that when I get refugee status, maybe I'll get somewhere to live. I will have time a little bit to rest and recuperate and all of that. I received letters together with the offer of 5-year refugee thing, which was saying you can apply for a loan of £500 to help you, what do they call it? Integrate. I applied straight away because I needed it, because I didn't have nothing. I've been, in industry for a long time. So I said, I need the loan so I can buy maybe clothes and shoes so that I can have something when I'm looking for a job, I have clothes to wear. But when they responded for that loan application, they said, oh, no, we cannot give you a loan because you'll not be able to pay it back. There is no money coming in and coming out of your bank account. So you'll not return. So I said, I thought it was an integration loan that they are saying to help me now, to transition from asylum seeker to refugee. And so that got me shocked. Like, how could I have money when I wasn't allowed to work in my account, that they can see that I'm having money that I'll pay back? But at the same time, probably this is what is also bringing us to how we have seen other refugees have been received and supported. It is a very good thing, but why can it not be extended to everyone? Because we hear some refugees, I was in a meeting at some point where people were saying, oh, we are giving £3,000 for this type of refugees for their, for their integration, £3,000 cash. But I was denied a loan of £500. So for me, I'm thinking, what is the difference between my refugee and the next refugee, where I'm denied a loan, but someone has a full package? So it's something that I think is wrong. Everyone should be welcomed, and everyone has problem. Everyone needs support to settle, and that should be extended to everyone later. Thank you.
And from what you are seeing, what would you say is the difference between you, who was denied a £500 loan, to this group of refugees who are being given a £3,000 community package?
My friend usually would say, this is the difference. This is the difference. It's definitely, it is the skin color. It is the skin color. But there's nothing I can do about that. Because for me, I believe I chose to be born the way I am born, and so I embrace that, and nothing will make me to go this way or that other. And I think it's just wrong to base things like that based on skin color.
And then going back to that 5 years. So after these 5 years, how much are you will it be automatic that after these 5 years you you submit a form and then you get a indefinite leave? Or
This is what I have been told, but I'll need to find out, especially with my solicitor. I've been told that, excuse me, that it is automatic, but I need to find out whether towards the end you need to apply for the indefinite leave. But I'm not so sure, because I got my status in 2022. So I'm thinking, oh, it's 2027. I still have time. But there is a lot of changes that are happening. Like now, I just received a text maybe 2 days ago to switch to e-visa, which I haven't done yet. So we don't know what else. And but I would need to speak with my solicitor first to actually know exactly what I need to do after 5 years, because I really don't know.
And how much will you be expected to pay?
I understand the indefinite is free, but after 1 year, if you want to now become British, to get British citizenship, then that you have to pay, which I also understand that they are saying is a lot of money. But I haven't done that research myself yet. And this is how sometimes we get stuck when things come and you realize to say, oh, actually, because sometimes you think like maybe it's just, £100 or something like that. And the time comes, you find that it's actually maybe it's 3,000, and then you are like, where would it come from? Then now you need years to even save again. But it's something that I'll be looking into to find out how much, so that maybe we can start preparing. Although it is still hard to prepare, because you can only save if you have. But at the moment, it's a hand to mouth kind of thing. So yeah.
And welcome, Dadirai. Welcome. You're mute.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, I was in a meeting, so I was I couldn't get out. But thanks for inviting me. Thanks, and hi, everybody.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you. We've just been listening to Loraine talking about a journey up to the point where we are now. We haven't started talking about current affairs. We're just talking about the journey itself.
Okay.
How, if you don't mind, how was yours?
Oh yeah, my name is Dadirai Tsopo, and I came into the UK 22 years ago. I came to join my husband and then sought asylum then. I was quickly refused. And I remember just having to take trips to Liverpool and be told that, well, you're liable to deportation, you should have said it on time, because I sought asylum after I got in first, on a student spouse visa, which I hadn't used really. I just got in and then told them. But the journey was difficult. It was, I remember feeling that I needed to go back, even though I knew I wasn't safe. And I lived under the specter of being removed. They made sure that you felt that you are going to go. And I had 2 young children and my husband, obviously. I remember going to court at some point in Nottingham when I was told that my asylum claim had failed. And I was told, well, just go back. And I said, well, you can't say things like that. It's not like I'm making myself feel unsafe. I am unsafe. But the situation had its own hostilities, because these days we talk about the hostile environment as if it's something new. It was hostile in its time, in 2005. This is what I'm talking about. And I remember, having to travel on a train to Liverpool with young kids and not much money, and having the processes done in Liverpool and them saying, oh, you need to come back tomorrow. And I was living in Leicester, thinking, well, how the hell am I going to get money to go back tomorrow to finish this whole thing? But somehow we had to go back. We got the money, we went back. And when we went back, we were prepared to spend the whole day, because they said we hadn't finished, documenting everything for us. And I remember getting in and them saying, oh, we are done. In less than 10 minutes, they were done. Imagine, we had to find hundreds of pounds to travel to Liverpool, only to spend 10 minutes in that place where you're feeling so nervous, anxiety, you're beside yourself with the whole system. And it's quite dehumanizing, quite, you feel so undignified, because you ask yourself a lot of questions that you don't need to ask yourself. But hey, we went back. All that was unnecessary, because I lost all claims of asylum. And I was told that, oh, you're liable to be deported. And I remember back in the day, they came to our house. You know how terrifying it is that the Home Office actually comes to your house. They came and said, they were trying to negotiate with me and my family. They said, oh, Dadirai, you're a civil servant. Why don't you just go back home? Go voluntarily. And why should you allow yourself to live like this? They talk as if they are like on your side. I found that quite condescending, quite racist, actually, to be honest. It was painful. Yeah, I considered going a lot of the times. I remember my dad visited us during that time, and I said, I want to go back. And he said, go back to what? Are you safe? Do you feel safe? And I couldn't answer that question as my dad left. And I stayed without papers for some time. It's only around 2009 when the then Prime Minister Gordon Brown announced that they needed to do something about the asylum backlog. They're so clogged up that they had to start somewhere. And then they had to relook at them at all the issues. And I remember we were all contacted and we were told that, oh, you're going to have to go to Glasgow. We were dispersed to Glasgow, where our, where we were going to wait until the whole, re-looking at it was done. So we left Leicester thinking we're going to go to Glasgow, but only to go to Birmingham instead. And we said they were going to wait. We're going to wait there until everything was done. And in Birmingham, I didn't leave Birmingham. I ended up not being told to go to Glasgow. We were put in the asylum housing in Birmingham after having lived in initial accommodation by the Home Office in Birmingham, Stone Road. And we just waited, and we couldn't do anything. And mentally, I think it's one of the things that never leaves you. You're trying to be strong for the kids, and you're also trying to be strong generally for yourself. Otherwise, the system breaks you down. You can easily just, I saw people lose their minds. I saw people commit suicide because of the pressures of just waiting and asking yourself why this is happening. But eventually, we then got a letter from the Home Office to say we have not granted you asylum. We were never granted refugee status. We were told they are giving you, it was something about giving us our status because of the children who didn't have a connection with Zimbabwe at that point. One came as a very young one was born here. So they determined in their own rules that the kids didn't have a connection back home. So they couldn't go on that basis. And it was a special class of, of getting status, which was unique at that time. I didn't know, I knew it later on. And then they will say, yeah, you're not refugees. So you find that as soon as you're told that there are services that you may enjoy if you are a refugee, we couldn't have that. We would just have, you got your status now, get on with it, go to work and, live somewhere and stuff like that. Luckily, and we had kids, and the kids are the one, with the kids, you could get housing, because by that time there was also a very hostile situation in housing, that if you were single, you wouldn't get a house or a flat. So because of the children, everything was based on the children, and they did a lot to just protect children. Actually, the children, we were told later on by our lawyer, later on, that the children had already been granted a status well before us. They didn't tell us. The kids had already been granted as British citizens years before we were, while we were still suffering, the kids were already in the system, but they were not enjoying that which caused them that sort of status, things like child benefit and everything. They were not being accorded that. They were just treated as if they are also asylum seekers, or failed, we're called failed asylum seekers. So the journey was long and hard, and we started from scratch. We came here as professionals, but we started we had to go back to university in order to engage with local employment, because they wouldn't take experience from where we came from. And so you needed to humble yourself to really go back to the bottom. And it's a humbling experience. It's painful, but we were determined, and we did it. I went back to uni. But the issue is that you just don't simply find work immediately. And that's one thing that people don't allow themselves to feel or think, like, oh, I'm just going to get education and then I'll get a job. It doesn't work like that. I struggled a lot. I worked in care. I did cleaning jobs as a graduate, because after my degree, after going back to uni, I went on to do international development at Birmingham at master's level, thinking, oh, I can up my stakes, and nothing. It was difficult, and you had to know people. Who did I know in this country? I didn't. And you had to be a certain color. I'm not. So the odds were against me. So with the people with the same qualification or lower qualifications than I had, moved into jobs very quickly without any issues. While I had to do care work, I did care work. It's funny, I did care work. I remember going to work in Walsall, it's the northern part of Birmingham, for 20 hours. And I did that for like 5 years. It's funny, because I know that I wasn't actually, it was costing me more to go there than not to go. But I kept on going, because you need to feel like you are engaging your mind and your body, and you're saying, you need to feel like you're contributing, even though actually you are probably paying into the system, because that's how I felt in the end. I mean, I laugh about it now, but it's a sorry thing. And you also need to be a good role model for your children. I was raising children in this country, and I didn't want them to feel like, oh, we just we do nothing. No, that's not how we do it where we come from. We work. We work for everything we have, and we're brave, and we shall continue to walk, because momentum has already been had. You see what I mean? My dad used to say, once you've started moving, momentum has been had. You don't stop. If you need to crawl, crawl. If you need to kneel on your knees, then kneel and move. So that's the kind of thing that we have to do. But as someone who went through the asylum system in this country, yeah, the hostility has always been there. I can tell you this right now. It continues. It is bred. It is normalized. It is something that has become almost cliche for other people, and yet for people like us, it is our lives. It is our livelihoods. It is our mental health. It is our children's future and current living standards. And it's just, when you watch things having gone down, because I count myself quite lucky, because things that were happening there were horrible, but now they are beyond horrible. They are below the very lowest of the low. Things that I have to see. I always discuss with Loraine and thinking, oh my goodness. I have a friend. Who I used to have in Leicester. I got my status, and she still is waiting for her status. 20 years after. I've had status for 15 years. She had been waiting 5 years before I met her. And I met her recently, and she's still in the fight. You know, it broke me. It absolutely shattered me. And to think that's where we are, and then to see the current state of affairs, all the violence and everything, I think, my goodness, I have to go through this violence as well when I've been waiting for 20 years. And how many of her are out there? How many of us have gone through this? And when we're seeing today, oh, Dadirai, she's a community worker, she does this, we're still in the fight, is what I can say. You know, it's never a one or a done deal. It's never one, but we keep going. And I am in this field because I've been through it as well. And I want to do my bit to try and make it better for those who are still in the fight. So I feel like all of us will fight in a different way. We will advocate, we will speak where we need to speak, we will, we'll attend things, we will work in certain areas, because that is the way that the system in this nation is set out. When they say this racism is structural, all the structures are created to make us feel very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. We need to jump hoops, and we'll continue to jump them, even though we have our status. So it doesn't stop when you get the British passport or your indefinite leave to remain or something. It doesn't stop. You're fighting all the way. You're fighting to keep a job. You are fighting because of who you are rather than for what you are willing to give to this country, and that is probably the most painful thing. You come with such hopes and aspirations to give, to a country, but you find that you are peddled. There's someone who's taking from that nation, and it's hard to take. If I say painful, I don't think it actually says what it's supposed to be. It's hard to take, and I becry those we have lost along the way, because we have, and they died without having a status or some kind of, a rationalized way of living. I becry people who have come to this country and continue to be homeless, sit on the streets of the UK as if, that is where they need to be. Have died in there. There's some have lost their minds. Some had to go back, and on arrival there, they just died. The stress and the ill treatment of the system in which they existed was so pervasively, damning for them. We were dealt a large blow, but having said that, there is success to be made, but I think it is success in the realm of other macro things happening elsewhere, like the riots, like these racist things happening. It's success with a few caveats. It's success with us having to look over our shoulder. Even though I spent 20 years in there, after those riots started happening, for the first time in my 20 years in this country, I began to feel that I couldn't go to certain places. And that has taken back everything. It has taken this country back, so back in the 80s, when we used to be a young person in Zimbabwe, reading about stuff. And now we have to live like that. And it's normalized, and I hope that we get a chance to really tell people how it feels to feel what we feel. Because more often than not, nobody wants to hear what the migrant says, because people know. They seem to, we know what no, people don't know what we feel. People don't know how it feels to live as a second-class citizen, where you have to pay for NHS when others are not paying. People need to feel what it feels to work in care when you are a master's graduate who is ready to give to that country and give more. People need to know that. People need to know how housing policies in our local authorities are racialized. Certain people will be put in certain places because they are who they are. It's terrible. There's a lot to talk about, but I also hasten at this call to celebrate the successes that we've been able to. The fact that we're here to talk to you, you know, is a celebration in itself. We've walked the walk, and we are now trying to help others walk it too. You see, we celebrate those who have been strong enough, and we celebrate those who have lost as well, because they had their fight. Yes, they are now resting, but we shouldn't forget that the structural inequalities that are experienced by migrants are so pervasive and so sustained. It's unimaginable, some of the things that people are having to live with. And I count myself lucky to have come out on the other side and be able to advocate for others. And podiums like this give us a chance to share. But it's only a real small microcosm of a larger picture. Imagine if we go to a hotel, that hotel in Rotherham, and ask people what they feel and how they feel, what would they tell us? You know, what pearls of wisdom would they give us about their own journeys? If we go to Calais, where people are waiting to risk their lives and drown in those channel waters, what would they say? Do you know what I mean? And I think there's a much more broader discussion or way of looking at things that should allow people to just talk and vent. You know, because more often than not, migrants, we're quiet because what can we do? The system is against us, and you sort of accept it and move. And you just have to, but this is where we are. So sometimes when I feel stressed, I write a lot of poems, like Loraine does as well. We write, and sometimes you have to. Because life is happening, you know, you're struggling like this here, as an asylum seeker and everything, you get a phone call, oh, Sekuru, somebody has died in Zimbabwe. I've lost siblings while I was here, while I was in the fight to get papers. I've lost 5 siblings, imagine. And you still have to process that. It's one of the hardest things. It's a case of, if I knew then what I know now, what would I do? That's the golden question. But we will do whatever we need to do. Thanks.
And then before we look at the riots, do you remember do you remember how you felt when you were told that you'd been given leave to remain?
Yeah, I remember the day. I remember I remember I was sleeping when the phone call came from my lawyer, who was in Manchester. He was a Zimbabwean lawyer who had been, you know, facilitating that. And I was sleeping, and he said, oh, I want to talk to my Tsopo. And then I was given the phone. But when I was given the phone, you know, you're half asleep and you're thinking, oh God, what now? You know, what else could go wrong now? And I remember he said to me, are you awake, or are you, what's happening? And I said, oh, I was asleep. He said, can you sit up? And I remember I sat up. And I said, oh God, we're going home for sure. That's what, you know, that's how I felt. I felt these things in my belly thinking, now we're homebound for sure. And then he says, yeah, my Tsopo, I want to tell you that your papers are here. Do you know, it's like you miss a breath. You think you're not breathing. Something happens. It's like, because I remember touching my chest, thinking, you know what's happening? Like it was a surreal moment, you know, of, oh my God, you know, what's happening? You know? And then I said, don't play with me. Don't even joke with stuff like that with me, please. She goes, no. Your papers are here. You have to come and collect them. I was like, Misty, what are you saying? And then I wept. I cried so hard. I went to the ground and I lay on my belly and I wept. I wept. I remember before the papers came, I used to look outside the window and say, wow, wouldn't it be, how would I see differently when I have papers? Would I see the world in a different way through the window? I used to say that. On that day, I wept and I went to the window and I opened the window just to see with these new eyes of someone who now has lived to remain in the country. you know, it's terrible. I'd become that. You know, I went, gosh, what just happened to me? But that was a special moment. I cried, and we started to pray, my husband and I. I remember my husband, as soon as he heard that, he left the bedroom and he went straight to the lounge and he started to pray, to thank God, because he had done a good thing for us. I kept on crying. I couldn't believe it. I was at the window looking as if I'm seeing something new, but it was what I'd already seen all my life, or no, all that time when I'd been in that flat. And I just thought, oh, really, really. And I traveled to Manchester. You know, it's sick. I traveled almost in doubt. You know what I mean? I was like, is this really true? It's, even though everything was I was like, I went all the way to Manchester, went to the office, and I said, I'm going to have to believe after I've seen, after I've touched them. I remember I want to see and touch. And he handed them over to me. And yeah, and then I believed. I had become so I can't even explain, you know, from where I was before I came into the country, where I was on that day. I realized I'd lost a lot of myself through the process. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I felt sorry for me. You know, I held it. It was almost poetic. I was like, gosh, what just happened to me? I used to be there, but look at me now. And then I remember I came back, and on a bus, because that's what we could afford. Remember, we were jobless. You know, we couldn't work. I came back and I we had a church meeting that night. So I had to go back and go straight to church because there was a church meeting I was part of. And my husband was just waiting for me there. And he was like, so, you know, I'm like, yeah, we got them, we got them. And there was a cousin of mine at the church who said, so what did you get? What did you get? You know, I didn't care what I got. You know, I don't think I'd read all that. I think at that point, I thought, I got indefinite leave to remain. Oh, really? That didn't really matter to me, to be fair. Do you know what I mean? I didn't care whether I remember praying, saying, God, please just give me 2 years and then maybe I can just go back home or something. And we laughed about it. And I went home and I told my parents. My dad had been saying, it's okay, don't worry. I knew it was going to be okay. And the feeling of having papers was so overwhelming because we're told we couldn't access certain services, like I said before. And then that's when we were told, within 24 hours of being given those papers, we were told, please go to the neighborhood office because you need to leave that flat within 72 hours. You know, things just kind of just started to change in another direction. So you were happy, but you're also kind of a bit scared and anxious about the next step. We went to the neighborhood office in the afternoon and they said, oh, can you go home and pack your bags today? You're going into a hotel. So within 48 hours of getting papers, we were in a hotel, in a one room hotel. It's one room in that hotel, waiting to be placed in a temporary accommodation for the council. And it was quick and swift. So there's no time to process a lot, but you're also processing a lot as well. So we just went along and then we got the temporary flat. And we stayed there for a number of weeks before we were placed on the housing register as priority, and then we got housing. We first got housing, which was not even fit for human, habitation. I don't know how that happened. We said no to that. And I remember being threatened again. It's you are fighting in a lot of battles. I was told, oh, you said you were homeless, so the Housing Act gives us powers to chuck you out, and we can do that. I just told that young man, I said, oh, what I know is that the Housing Act also protects me. I am willing to go to court, and then I'll tell them exactly which house you're putting me in. And maybe they can actually give me something much better than. The moment I say that, he said, oh, okay, Mrs. Tsopo, let me cut the phone. I'll come back to you. When he came back to me, he had changed his tone. And that gave me a sad sense of, oh, if I was someone who was not as articulate as I was, what was going to happen? That was the first glimpse into the housing system of new refugees or new people being given housing. Because there was a sense, at least there was a phrase that was used there that was trying to say, oh, you're actually very lucky because you're a foreigner, you're getting a house because these houses are meant for local people. I was made to feel, they didn't use those same words, but they're like, oh, you should be taking, you're lucky, you're coming out of the asylum system, you should be grateful for anything you get because there is a housing list for local people and it's not moving. I was taken aback by that statement. So that's why I'd insisted, okay, let's go to court. And then I would just have to tell the judge everything you've just said. And at that point, I think they knew it wasn't going to work because I was ready to do that. I'd fought so long, so hard that at this point, I wasn't afraid to lose anything because I'd lost everything. All the dignity that I thought I had was gone. Was absolutely gone. Living in initial accommodation with people with it dehumanizes you. Yes, it gives you shelter, but it strips you away slowly. And that's the bit that I didn't have anything to lose. So eventually we then were placed in a flat, which is now where we live. But the journey has been long, and other people have their journeys too. And yeah, it's tough. It has been a tough call living here. And like I said, there are those who were also like us, who are not with us now. And it's a constant reminder that I feel blessed to still be around and be advocating for others. That's why I will spend my time to advocate for others who cannot speak for themselves. Because yeah, the system is hard. If it's more hostile now, that means there's more work that needs to be done now more than ever to try and lessen the burden on those that are going through it. But some of the stories are so harrowing. Yeah, it keeps you awake at night.
And can I also check, how long were you in the asylum system? And also, can you maybe say something about how, during that time, how contact with the Home Office felt?
Yes. I was in the asylum because I claimed in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I was in the asylum system for 5 years. And I remember when I was still in Leicester, before we got our status, I used to report to the Home Office in Loughborough. So it was a bit of a journey. I was telling Loraine at some point that I actually know the bus number that I used to get on. It was the number 50, a river from Leicester to Loughborough. And every Monday, that trip, I started getting nervous on the Sunday. Yeah, Sunday was never. I would go to church after that. I'm feeling quite sick, quite nervous and anxious about tomorrow's trip to Loughborough, right? So I'd go into town and get on the bus. It was a small office that we used to go to. And there would be lots of people, as always, loads of people, because I think it was an East Midlands sort of base. Was the West Midlands base is in Solihull. I think the East Midlands was is Loughborough at that time. And I used to think, oh gosh, the shocking thing that would happen. We're all nervous for ourselves. The Home Office used to come and raid people there. They'll just come, like almost like riot police. They'll just come, close the door and raid people. They'll be looking for someone and they've got wind that they're there. It was a small space. And you're sitting there trying to process everything, trying to just report and take and go. But people are being raided and you don't know whether they're coming for you or, do you know what I mean? When they come, they don't tell you their names. We laugh now, but at that point, I remember sitting with one of my friends. It wasn't funny. It was like, it was sick. We sat there and one time they came and they were taking these guys to Hammondsworth Detention Center near Heathrow. And I remember they just came and shut the door. Hey, we're looking for that. There was a bit of scuffle because I think the people who were taken away had also noticed that something was about to happen, but it was too late. Apparently they had not reported for a few times, and they had been called again, and they were told they had reported on that day. So they were going to be removed. You know, it sent shockwaves in the whole sort of, place that we're sitting, the reception area. And I remember sitting there feeling like I can't feel my feet anymore. You're not running, but you feel like you've run a mile sitting down. And it was so inhumane. It could have been done in a different way. Do you know what I mean? So as not to cause distress. But I feel that it was meant to cause distress. It was meant to make it very uncomfortable for us to be there, so that we would either pick to just say, oh, guys, I'm going back on my own. I can't deal with this. So in terms of mental well-being, that was not looked at. I mean, the way people talk about, oh, well-being and, these days, it wasn't there then. They came, they hammered the door, they just got people they want. And after they're gone, the sense of, oh my goodness, we just survived was always there. So imagine every Monday I had to make that trip. Because my lawyer, when I lost the case, she said, whatever you do, Dadirai, go and report. I don't care whether you're sick, go and report. And I kept that. I said, I will go and report. Because the moment you don't report, they're after you. They want you to fail to report, and then they come after you, even if you've got a valid reason. And I remember the feeling of just the impending, the impending feeling for Monday, but the continuous feeling for the next 5 years. The good thing is that you don't know it's going to be 5 years before it's 5 years. But imagine having to feel that constantly all the time. I was a new mother. I had delivered by a difficult cesarean section. So health-wise, I was quite weak as well and recovering. But that's not anyone's problem. That's your problem, and I had to go there. And every time I came back, you breathe a sigh of relief for the next 6 days. Okay. So you're okay. And then Sunday comes, you go to church. After church, you start getting the jitters for Monday. And it was like that for 5 years. It's something that I could, just reporting on its own, I could write a book on it, on the reflections, on what went through my mind, on crying on my own as I walked to Loughborough, on not being able to tell my parents we'd sought asylum. I couldn't tell them. We only told my mom, well, my dad knew, he kept quiet, but my mom, we knew she couldn't handle it. We only told my mom when we were told that we're going to Glasgow, when we left Leicester, and she couldn't handle it completely. It was just a mess, which is why we didn't tell her in the first place. But having almost to live a lie, your family back home, then they don't actually know you've sought asylum. They don't. They know you're not working. They just think, oh, maybe they're finding how to find work or whatever. And you have to keep this away from them to save them from the burden of having to worry about what happens, what is the court said. I used to go to court as well. And in the court, the judge felt sorry for me. He says, Mrs. Tsopo, we're sorry. This is a system that isn't supporting people like you, but there's nothing we can do. You have not been granted asylum, and you are liable to be removed, and that will be written in red. There was a letter in black, and then the liable to be removed was always written in red. And these letters used to come like every 3-4 months to remind you that, hey, you're going to go home very, very soon. And so it was a deliberate way of making sure that we feel very uncomfortable. And yeah, it's quite difficult to put it all into context, and sort of retelling it like this is almost, it's a bit of trauma as well. It's almost re-traumatizing. I'm okay with it. I have talked about this many times, and me and Loraine talk about it and we laugh about it, but it doesn't mean that we are damaged. Parts of us are damaged because of the processes that we've gone through. And God knows what is happening out there, now that the policy is even more hostile than it was back then. I can't imagine. But that friend of mine who's been waiting, who I knew back in Leicester, and she's still in the system, yeah, that broke me. That absolutely shattered me. Yeah, terrible.
And you were, what were the reporting conditions like when you were pregnant?
Oh no, you had to report. Oh, you needed to report. When I was pregnant, they said, yeah, you report to Loughborough. So sometimes a friend of mine who was English would drive me there. I still had to report. I didn't get any sort of favors or anything. I only got a bit of a leave when I actually delivered by C-section because I had to stay for 1 week in the hospital anyway. So I couldn't report because I was physically unable to be outside of a hospital. So what they then did, they wanted to know when I was going to leave the hospital, basically. So, and my doctor then wrote some letter, I think, and said, oh, she's not going to be moving because I had a lot of complications. And there was, I wasn't allowed to move for a long time. So my illness, my being ill actually is the one that gave me a bit of reprieve from the reporting conditions. As soon as I could walk and the doctor could certify that I walked, even though he tried to delay it, they were like, oh, you need to be reporting, even though, you know, I had been made to understand that there would be exceptions when you're pregnant and when you have a child and, you know, medical issues. But on the ground, no, I kept on reporting. I think there was a time I remember because I just didn't want to stay at home. I was doing stuff at the local community center. We were doing some flower arranging stuff, you know, just to while up time. And then I remember the Duke of Wessex, who is Prince Albert. Is it Prince King Charles's little brother? He came to that. So we were invited to the function because we used to use that. And I was sent a personal letter from the palace to say he's coming, blah, blah, blah. I had to take that letter to Loughborough to say, guys, I will not be able to report because I've been invited to this occasion by the Jew. I think that was that and the time when we went for church revival, for a church revival, are probably the few times, which about 2 or 3 times that I did not report, apart from when I was pregnant, when I just delivered, sorry. So yeah, reporting had to continue, and you couldn't miss because they were saying, oh, well, others can come, you can come, we are coming by bus, so what's the problem? And you don't really want to argue with them, really, because it's not a friendly place to be in these reporting centers. I understand some were doing it at the police stations. I never did it at a police station, but it could have saved me if I had done it at a local police station. It would have saved me going to Loughborough, for instance, but I had different means. My reporting was also then changed at some point. I'd forgotten this. There was a time when I was told, oh, you're going to report at the East Midlands airport. Imagine, I'm already in tenterhooks about reporting in Loughborough. Now I have to report at the East Midlands airport. Ah, come on. I remember thinking, yeah, now this is it for sure. I had a dream like, oh, I'm going home for sure, you know. And then I went to East Midlands Airport, and it's in Derbyshire. It's in the countryside, so it's not away from the city. So transport is like, you know, very limited. So I got to the airport to report. They've got an office there, the border force. And then I arrive, and the guy goes, oh, Mrs. Tsopo, oh, we sent a telegram. You're not supposed to come. We realized that, oh, your baby's still young. This Midlands is too far. When I was already there, imagine. You know, I went outside that office and I burst into tears. That's all I could do. What could I do? Oh, sorry, we realized late, but we sent the telegram late. You know, it's a non-caring environment, you know, sustained and, you know, put in place just to cause maximum pain, you know, maximum emotional distress, you know, slowly to wind, to grind people down. I don't even know how I remain strong in that process. I don't. I look back and I think, God, you're good. Yeah. because I don't know if you couldn't pay me $1 billion to go through that process again. Never. I would rather die, actually. It's not right that we should live like that. It's not right that we should hold fellow men in that way, you know, and normalize it together with all the other things that we have to experience in our communities. Oh, it's tiring thinking about migration in this country, and and you have to raise children, almost training them to be strong when other kids are just being kids. Our kids cannot just be kids. They're Black kids. They're of migrant origin. They are told, you know, just because they carry the British passport doesn't mean that, you know, they belong elsewhere. And you have to tell them, even the one that I gave birth here stands aside, you know, knowing that the system puts her in her place. And it's tough. That is what is tough, the legacy of it all. You know, you've done this, you know, and the kids are supposed to be okay. But then at the end of the day, it's like, oh God, I becry my fellow colleagues who have to raise kids and still have no papers. Imagine. So I can't complain. I'm not complaining. I'm saying thank you, but I will use my time to support those who need my help. As long as I'm breathing, I will do that. As long as I can, I will do that. Because if we don't do it, who will? Because that's the question usually. If you're an advocate, you can't say, oh, someone else. No, you do it. So that when the sum of all the parts, when we do what we need to do or we have to do, then maybe there can be one single change, you know, and we can start to inspire each other. I'm inspired a lot by my friend Loraine. Yeah, because that's what happens. You know, we're far away from home. Yeah. And when we're here, we are the same people. We're no longer just, oh, Southern Africans, East Africans. We are Africans. And that's what holds us together. And sometimes we focus on things that are not really important. But the disturbances have shown that, oh, some things that are normalized, you know, those ones are lying around, you know, waiting behind the scenes to strike just when there's a little spark or a big spark. I'm a community worker, as you see, my preamble is that I'm a community worker in a predominantly white working class area of Birmingham that suffers a lot of deprivation. And you find that issues of migration are top on the list because everybody thinks, oh, you guys who are coming from outside are taking our things. And I work in that scenario to try and say, no, that's not it.
So what we could do, because that was the other thing that we were going to do. We were going to look at, you know, the experiences of the riots, of the race riots.
Yes.
The racist riots. But because we finish at 7:30, maybe if it's okay with you, we can meet again next month. And
yes, definitely. I'm willing to meet again and we can continue to share.
Yeah.
And continue to see how we can join forces to help others, but to also, you know, influence policy and practice somehow. Even at the grassroots, we can do it, because otherwise we just say, oh, it can't be done, and then what? Then what? So we definitely, yeah, it would be great meeting again. And experiences are important, really, because we all have stories, and these stories need to be told. And such podiums allow us to tell the stories, but to also, you know, think of ways in which we can collaborate and try and make things a little better.
Yeah. And then with Loraine, we started with poetry. Yeah. I don't know if it would be okay with you if you've got yours. Maybe
oh, me? No, sorry, I didn't come prepared. Sorry. I'll let my sister end with a poem for us, please.
Okay. But when we meet next month, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
maybe we'll hear some from you as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Loraine, and thank you, Dadirai. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was so moving. And thank you for sharing your pain. And yeah, I was crying listening to your story. I was crying. I'm so sorry that we have to go through this. So this poem is short. It's about speaking our truth. Speak truth. Speak for humanity and not for one race. Speak as if it's your last day alive. Speak for future generations. Speak for common sense. Let the ears of bigots burn at the sound of your truth. For at the end of it all, we are all just a small whistle stop in this game of life. Some people have become so obsessed with the color of their skin at the expense of everyone else. Speak against the lying press that has pitted races against each other, portraying our cultures as evil, to promote the one race narrative, which is something that never happens in life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Loraine.
Thank
And
you.
thank you also everyone who attended. I will not say more. We'll just end with Loraine's voice, and we'll stop here, and we'll meet again next month.
Thank you,
very much.
everybody.
Thank you.
This poem is called Because We Are Humans. I have brown eyes, you don't. I love Nsima, Sadza, you don't. I'm a Christian, you are not. I wrap my waist or cover my head or make a dress from an African cloth, chitenje. You have a different taste. The entire world is like that, different. We are all individuals with different needs, tastes, and importance. Let us embrace everyone as they come as individuals, treated the same because we are humans and a part of the community. I am me, you are you. I don't need to be you, nor you to be me. We can laugh and joke, share and cry without me becoming you or you becoming me. Seeking dreams in the streets. A female friend tells me, that night when I reached the door and found the keys left inside the lock to block me out, I closed my eyes tightly to make sure I wasn't dreaming. The third eye reached for the hedge. I wasn't afraid of the cold, nor humans. A multitude of snails, with and without shells, licked me everywhere, asking me to open my mouth, sensing I hadn't eaten for days. When I come to your house, please do not serve snails on the kitchen table. Seeking dreams in the streets. Another female friend says to me, for 4 days, I hadn't had a bath under the bridge where I lodged. I became aware of my own smell. I now bathe twice a day. When I come to your house, please don't ask me why I love baths so much. I'm paranoid that the smell would return. Seeking dreams in the street. This male friend says in excitement, the graveyard was the best of all. No one spat on me. But I realized I couldn't speak. I didn't know if I was alive or not. When I come to your house, please don't shut me off when I speak. Seeking dreams in the street. Another male friend says, I was very happy sleeping in an old car. It was safer than the open space, although I couldn't stretch my legs. When I come to your house, please don't ask me to drive your car. Seeking dreams in the streets. An elder friend tells me, the refugee organization I trusted handed me a sleeping bag and led me to my new home, the pavement. When I come to your house, don't let me sit or sleep on a hard floor. And this poem is called How to Walk With Me. So this poem was written in the form of what they call ABCdarian. So every line starts with a letter of the alphabet from A to Z. And here we go. How to walk with me. Accept me as I am. Be with me in my struggles. Converse with me. I'm human. Diligently and with dignity, engage with me. Every passing minute, we lose focus when we engage in hate. Greet me and light my spirit. Human I am, and so are you. Indifference is not an option. Just like a beating heart, think not of stopping. Kill the state of knowing. Be curious instead. Let me hold your hand and walk with me. My journey finishes when all are free, nobody left behind, only holding each other's hands. Pity is not to be saved now. Let's walk. Questions shall be answered, revisited at the end. For now, let's walk. Soon we shall celebrate through all the barricades of systemic abuse. Until the end, this walk is all we have. Victory or life, our lives are on the line. Who really wants to live like this? Examined and inspected every day when reporting. You wouldn't know it unless you walk with me. So zero down with me and hold my hand. Let's walk. Speak truth. Speak for humanity and not for one race. Speak as if it's your last day alive. Speak for future generations. Speak for common sense. Let the ears of bigots burn at the sound of your truth. For at the end of it all, we are all just a small whistle stop in this game of life. Some people have become so obsessed with the color of their skin at the expense of everyone else. Speak against the lying press that has pitted races against each other, portraying our cultures as evil, to promote the one race narrative, which is something that never happens in life. Thank you.